Hey, this is James Glass, and I'm here working on our tiny home. Um, the day is lovely. It's a beautiful fall day here in Blacksburg, Virginia, and I wanted to talk about dealing with unconditioned crawl spaces and how you can insulate them and get a proper air barrier. There's a ton of information on the federal website. Uh, the DOE has lots of specs and diagrams and photos of how to's and how not to's. But this video is going to kind of encapsulate everything. And I'm at the beginning of this project, so this will give you an opportunity to see sort of a before, and then later on I'll come back and do an after video. Okay, so what's an unconditioned crawl space? This is an unconditioned crawl space. It is under a single wide trailer, which I've converted to an ultra energy efficient tiny home. And so I have a lot of massive amounts of energy efficiency here. R34 walls, R60 ceilings, and underneath I can get R19. I can come back later and add another R15 if I run 2x4s perpendicular to this, but for right now I'm just going with R19. I have high efficiency HVAC, high efficiency windows, house wrap, yada yada. It's no longer a single wide, but if you own a single wide, this still applies. If you have a tiny home, this applies. If for whatever reason you have a residential home with an unconditioned crawl space, it applies. In 2012, crawl spaces in residential homes had to be part of the conditioned environment. And I'm not going to talk about that, but you might want to Google it. Okay, we're almost 2 minutes in. Let's get started. That's the background. So, unconditioned crawl space means that this is not heated or cooled at any point during the year. Here in Blacksburg, we live in a heating climate, which is to say that we get pretty cold in the winter, and everything above that subfloor is conditioned. So in the wintertime, it's heated. We have extremes down in the single digits. Usually it's 20s and 30s. And then in the summer, we see 82, in extreme conditions, 100. And what I have to do is make the conditioned environment, which is everything above that subfloor, toasty in the winter and cool in the summer. And here's how to do it. Step one, I went all out. I'm putting an 8-inch block wall for skirting instead of vinyl skirting all the way around. It will be vented, but I'm 24 inches down. And though that's not technically structural, it is on a footing. And from that point above will be a 2x4 wall, and the siding will continue down. Those piers are structural. So step one is the perimeter here is way above what you would do for a single wide trailer. I'm actually using 8-inch block for skirting. Step two is you have to put as much insulation as you can. In this case, you can get R19 or R21 for the 5.5-inch joist. It's 2x6 joist. And you got to seal the living crap out of it. And here's what I mean by that. So I've minimized my penetrations. I have no water lines under here, but I still have drain lines and I still have some electrical conduit. So I'll be caulking before I install insulation. Now, code requires a fireproof caulk on the vertical. So on the other side of that, there's a fireproof caulk. Down here, I'll be using a good quality urethane caulk to absolutely seal that up, make it super airtight. Down there, you can see that gray pipe sticking out in the middle. That's the conduit for the heat pump, same thing. On the other end, there's the kitchen and the bathroom. Again, there are drains. Every single one of those has to be caulked. I went ahead and put a double subfloor in. So every one of these seams does not line up with the subfloor on top. So I have 5-ply plywood here, and then I have OSB on the other side. I caulked I glued and screwed the entire subfloor down to the joists, and then I caulked around the entire perimeter. And then I'm installing batt insulation with the craft face side up, and you'll see these little lines in there. Those are insulation supports. They look like this. They're little wire rods. It is vital to keep the insulation in contact with the subfloor. See that? When I'm done, I will be going back and putting Tyvek house wrap all around the insulation and on both sides. So the trailer frame kind of comes down here. You can see it, but insulation continues on the other side. See that? So the Tyvek will be sealed with butyl tape to the trailer frame, and then I'll bring it down another inch or so, and then seal it with a sticky flashing that you use for windows. And then where there are penetrations, for example, here's the penetration for the boys' bathroom, their tub. This is an issue in an unconditioned crawl space because the water in the P-trap can freeze. So I'll be building a special box that comes all the way down with its own thermal environment to keep this water from freezing. And it'll be accessible because it'll have a door on it in case you need to gain access. And it'll be completely insulated. Same thing with the water line over there. Most single wides and a lot of unconditional crawl spaces have water lines that are extremely vulnerable to freezing. Well, I buried mine 2 feet down, and where it comes into the house, this little platform here, this little 3.5 inches of concrete is just a little platform to build a box around this. So I've installed a heat strip that runs from the ground up to and into the house. That'll be caulked. It's taped with R2 and duct taped. And then I'll be building a box all the way around this. This heat tape will probably never come on in our climate, but as a backup, this 5 feet of line, even though it'll be in its own environment, will have heat tape. You can't put heat tape on drain lines. You gotta have water in them. And so on extreme nights when it gets single digits, I will have to pour in the 2 traps that are below the subspace. When we get down into the single digits, I'll have to pour, there's a special antifreeze that you can pour down drains. It's called RV antifreeze. It's made for drains. I'll have to put that in the traps. But my design will allow for, pretty much 15 degrees and above without the P-traps freezing. And we only have single digits a few days out of the year. So yeah, the underpinning was all ripped out. Basically, originally, there was no insulation between the joists. It wasn't in contact with the subfloor. All the plumbing was underneath the house. And so what they did is they basically used the inefficiency of the ducts from the ducted forced air to sort of keep the water lines from freezing. It was just shit. It was just crap. So all that is ripped out, and now I'm putting in proper insulation, proper air barrier, caulking everything. Where the air barrier, where the lines will come through, where there'll be the Tyvek, that'll be foamed. I mean, it's gonna be tight. Finally, the last thing to do after this is all done, the walls will be block bonded. That's actually a moisture barrier right there. Got to deal with moisture coming out of the ground. I'll be putting down very heavy plastic, at least 6 mil. I'm gonna try to find heavier 10 mil plastic. I'll be putting that down, and then some number 10 fine gravel to keep it in place. And I'll be bringing that all the way over to my masonry walls. And then I can level this out down here, and I'll be able to keep the moisture out. And then in the area between the block and the bottom of the house, there'll be 5 vents along the long side of the trailer on each side to ventilate any moisture that gets down in here. That's how you deal with unconditioned crawl spaces. Caulk everything. Caulk those joints. Insulation right against the subfloor. Tyvek completely air sealed all the way around. At least 6 mil plastic secured in place in the floor with sand, or I'm going to use number 10 gravel. Some people throw rocks down, but they can still get ripped. By putting number 10 gravel down, my moisture barrier against the earth will never be damaged. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. And that's how you do it. And if you're really crazy like me, you go with 8-inch block for skirting, which I'm filling every 3 cells so that any vibration from the washing machine which is very minimal, but I have tiny amounts of harmonic issues, just a little bit with my, even my new washing machine. And so by having a mass all the way around attached to the bottom of the trailer, I should be able to not get any vibration through the floors. And with the double subfloor, it's just awesome. Well, anyway, that is the badass way to deal with a crawl space. Thanks for watching.